How many of you still wish the billion-dollar asshole was still in charge of the WWE? The billion-dollar asshole. What's up, everyone? I had to scramble for this shirt. Deep in the closet. Monday night, July 6th. Feels like we just did this yesterday. July 6th, 2026. Raw literally just went off the air. And yeah, I mean, if you're tuning in live, I think you pretty much have an idea as far as what happened tonight on Monday Night Raw. There you go. There you go. They did the Sami dirty. They did the Street Profits dirty. But I will tell you, I think we have to start getting used to something. Something that we kind of see happening right before our very eyes for the last couple of years. We just really haven't seen it this deep and this in your face. But something significant has changed in the WWE over the last year and a half, 2 years. And I think we have to get used to it. Now, listen, yesterday we talked in detail about Sheamus and the contract situation. All right. You don't need to be a genius to figure out that in all of business, as we said yesterday, they do it in baseball, they do it in basketball, they do it in all forms of sport. When someone starts getting up there in age and they're more of a part-time player than anything else, you're either not going to pay them a significant salary or you're going to let them go. All right. You don't need, with all due respect, you don't need a Meltzer or someone out there to give you an opinion and everybody reports it as news. That's not news. That's common sense. The Sheamus situation is, we compared it to Adam Copeland. Adam Copeland, Edge, was the perfect example of what WWE started to do. When you get up there in age and you're not going to be the focal point. CM Punk still is, obviously. But for some other individuals, they're not, whether you like it or not. And, you know, it's the vision that WWE sees. It's not the vision that we see. It's the vision that WWE sees. And make no mistake about it, CM Punk has turned into a corporate guy. That's not necessarily a good or a bad thing. It's just what it is, plain and simple. You saw him apologize in Saudi Arabia, ends up working there. People forgive. People have animosity towards CM Punk, whatever you want to think. But something has changed with WWE the last year and a half, 2 years. And you're watching it front and center more than ever before. If CM Punk's title win tonight doesn't convince you, the Street Profits losing the belts after 14 days doesn't convince you, if somebody winning King of the Ring and then decides they're not going for the championship doesn't convince you, if someone loses in the tournament but still gets the championship match at SummerSlam doesn't convince you, if last year's WrestleMania where somebody wins the Elimination Chamber, gets a title shot at WrestleMania, and then for some reason it becomes a three-way anyway doesn't convince you, and we could give more examples. There is a shitload more examples. What WWE is doing now is they're booking with the live fans first and foremost. In the past, when WWE used to be on USA Network and on Fox and on whatever regular platform, and they had pay-per-views, your revenue was highly based on that platform. When you had pay-per-views, depends on how many buys you get. With TV, it's advertisers, it's the TV deals, obviously. But a $155 million deal with USA Network is much different than a $5 billion deal with Netflix. And Netflix, yes, it's a cumulative viewership for a week. It's not the first 24. You know, in podcasts and, you know, regular cable television, a lot of people will base big numbers on the live stream, the first 24 hours. When it comes to Netflix, whether you watch it at 8:15 p.m. on a Monday night or you watch it at 9:45 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, the advertisers are still the same. The advertiser is still plastered before your television. All right, sure, you pay a little bit of an extra premium to be streamed live when it happens because there's a bigger audience all tuning in at the same time. But overall, it's nowhere near what it used to be. WWE has their money with Netflix. WWE has their money with Saudi Arabia. WWE has their money with ESPN. WWE has their money with Peacock. So when you realize that the check is issued, whether 1 million people watch or 200,000 people watch, they still got that check. And what's happening now with On Location and these outrageous ticket prices, that is the machine. That's the engine right now more than anything else. The TV deals are locked in. The checks are already issued. Now you're doing these live events and you're charging crazy freaking prices. So how do you please these people that are paying the max to go to these live events? Are you going to jerk them around? Are you going to just, we'll do it 3 weeks from now. We'll do it a month and a half from now. Sure, certain things take the scenic route. No question about it. But what they're doing now is they're booking for the people in attendance. Roman Reigns having an historic run. Remember, this was before Netflix. This was during Peacock, but Peacock's deal was nowhere near the level of what ESPN and Netflix is now. You look at Roman Reigns' historic run, it was before TKO taking over. It was before Netflix, for the most part. So now with this new era, it's okay. You know, the people in Italy, you know, they get to see Olber versus Brock. They get to see Gunther versus Cody. They get to see top shelf matches. Sure, the outcomes might be a little bit but you're paying for premium top content. You'll get a comedy match here and there, you know, just to lighten up the mood. But for the most part, that is what is happening now before our very eyes. So it's not, so to speak, you know, people online bitching and complaining. All right. I feel they did Sami dirty. All right. This is entertainment. You know, when we had the conversation about Natty yesterday, most people understood what I said, and we were not trying to be disrespectful for Natty. But what we talked about is really what it comes down to. You could have 500 Guinness World Records, but all of these title wins and submission wins and all this stuff, all right, it's entertainment. It's entertainment. It's just like a movie. If you have Rocky Balboa have 15 movies and he gets the Guinness World Record for the number of wins in a boxing match in a movie, you know, that's because producers booked the movie for him to win the fights. Natty, great athlete. Everybody in wrestling, spectacular athletes. But the wins are something that a promoter decides to write in the script. It's not actual wins. All right? Again, it's not a shot on her, but my point is we're watching entertainment. You know, we get very sensitive with wins and losses because we take it a little bit more serious. The people that get very incensed with it are the ones that'll tell you titles don't matter. Titles don't matter until it's their favorite that wins or loses. Then titles suddenly matter. I don't think at the end of the day, Sami Zayn is losing sleep over the fact that he only held the championship for 9 days. But what's happening now before our very eyes is people aren't screwed in the sense that we used to see it as. Wow, transitional champion. Wow, I remember we talked about it for ages with Christian when he won the WWE Championship. He lost it like this, and I'll never forget it. IWC was in an uproar over it, and Christian even went online and said, don't worry, everybody, I'll get it back. I'll get it back. But you knew at that time that, all right, just put the belt on him, get it done, and let's get it off of him. All right. Yeah, it was a beautiful, magical moment for Saudi Arabia. But if you think about Sami Zayn the last couple of years, where was the one place that we thought Sami Zayn would win the championship? Not Canada. Not Canada. Some people thought the Elimination Chamber, but we always talked. And a lot of you and yours truly said Saudi Arabia. You give that special, intimate, personal moment with Saudi fans. Give that intimate, personal moment with other fans, live in attendance. Wow, I got to see this title change. I got to see this. I got to see that. And then, before you know it, things have changed. The person drops the title before you could even take a leak. Somebody wins a tournament and it doesn't really end up happening the way it was booked. And listen, right now, people live in attendance are getting their money's worth. They're having a ball. For a lot of us that watch at home, yeah, we get a little annoyed at some of this stuff. I'm happy CM Punk is back. I take pride that I was one of the very few out there that didn't buy into all this CM Punk drama shit that people were trying to sell you online. In the past, CM Punk would go on social media and tell you to touch grass. Now, because he's WWE and TKO and corporate, he'll just shut up and just let his work do the talking. But get used to it. Get used to it. We are in a different era as far as wrestling goes. And it's not just TKO owns WWE, all right, because WWE was going to be sold. This was a conversation off and on for a good decade with all of us. You knew WWE was going to be sold, all right, and WWE will be sold again, all right. We don't know when, we don't know who. We kind of fear it's going to be Saudi Arabia. There is no perfect company out there. What if Disney would have bought WWE? You think things would have been different? What if Warner Brothers Discovery bought WWE? Would it have been different? What if Netflix bought WWE? Would it feel? I think Netflix would be worse. So when you buy something, you get to use it the way you want to use it. And TKO has realized that the big money outside of the TV deals is the live events. And that's why you see what you're seeing on TV. They're not booking to pop a rating anymore. They're booking to make the people who pay thousands of dollars to go to a WWE event feel like they had a magical moment. That magical moment is diminished as time goes by, but for the people that were there tonight, holy shit, they got their money's worth. Their homeboy, CM Punk, wins the Undisputed WWE Championship. And he will lead on SmackDown, go into SummerSlam. And who knows, SummerSlam, it could be Cody versus Sammy versus CM Punk versus Gunther if they don't do Gunther versus Nick Aldis. Or as Dave Meltzer reported, Gunther versus Royce Keys. There's a lot of ways they could go with this, but they're booking for live events. They're not booking the pop ratings anymore. They already got their money. And trust me, when it gets to that fourth year of Netflix's TV deal, because remember, Netflix could opt out after 5 years. So when it gets to year 4, in about 2.5 years from now, that's when you'll see WWE really, really turn up the Jets. And you'll see fucking all the major stars on SmackDown on Raw. You'll see the Raw stars. Brock Lesnar will keep coming out of retirement if he could still go. They'll fucking put everything they can to convince Netflix, yeah, let's re-up. Let's extend it for another 5 years. Billy Corgan said with NWA several years ago that he had a 20-year plan. I think now it's a 30-year plan, but he said it was a 20-year plan. I feel that with TKO, I think their ownership with WWE is either a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. That's what I think it comes down to. because if Netflix ever canceled their deal with WWE, unless you go to Amazon or someone else, there's not that many outlets out there that will pay that insane amount of money. So you don't have a plethora of that. That's why people are having so much fun with the AEW stuff, because if Warner Brothers Discovery, when the sale is complete and AEW doesn't have a home anymore as far as that platform goes, the options are a little bit limited. Tony Khan's a billionaire. Tony could stream on AEW Plus, and it'll be fine. It'll be perfectly fine. I mean, it'll keep going. The future is streaming. The future is streaming. But right now, before your very eyes, you see that WWE is no longer booking for your regular network television and popping ratings and stuff like that. It is to appease the people live in attendance. And I had this prepared for tonight. As of right now, for Saturday night's main event, they have 2 matches announced. Paige and Brie Bella defending the women's tag team championships against Lainey Reed and Fallon Henley. You also have Danhausen taking on JD McDonough. Okay? Of course, we expect 1 or 2 big matches to be added to this, but this is Saturday night's main event. I got emailed today, and I guarantee you some of you probably got emailed it as well. I got this emailed to me today, that WWE is offering group packages to go to Saturday night's main event. And I screenshotted the group package for 3 people and the group package for 6 people. Now, you would think that, when you have a group, they give you a nice little discount. The more people you bring with you, you get a little bit of a discount. As you could see on your screen right now, if you decide you want to go to Saturday night's main event and get this on-location package where basically you sit in that club in Madison Square Garden we've talked about before, it's like a bar area and you sit, it's like like skyboxes, but it's a big area. And they're advertising and you can meet Tiffany Stratton, Obafemi, Joe Hendry, and it's not a guarantee that you actually get to meet them and take pictures with them, but you get that. And you get to eat for 3 people, $2,850. That is not including taxes and fees. It is over $1,000 a person to sit in this area, eat, watch Saturday night's main event, and maybe get a chance to take a selfie with one of those 3. And then when I downloaded the 6-person plan, you think you'd save a little bit extra money. No, for 6 people, they want $5,700. And again, this is not including taxes and fees. Now, every time they show the pictures of the people posing, like I just for some reason can't picture some of these people that actually dropping $1,000 just to take a selfie with Tiffany Stratton and eat something in the fucking boondocks in Madison Square Garden. But this is what they're doing now. They're booking now for the live events. I watched, I don't want to say who it is, but there's a particular website out there that likes to put a lot of statistics up there. And they're comparing WWE live events from a year ago to today. And they're like, wow, it's 77% of WWE events had less attendance than last year. You can't fucking compare it because you got different towns and different countries and different prices and different this. It's just like the Nimrods that were comparing SummerSlam's ticket prices in Minnesota to New Jersey. Oh, look, they're finally listening. These tickets are 25, 30% less than New Jersey. No, moron. They're 30% cheaper because the economy in Minnesota is not the same economy as New York or New Jersey. You got to look at every individual town and country and state and see what their economy is, and then you understand why. Just imagine comparing going to Mexico last year or going to Mexico this year and going to Jersey last year in the same quarter. It sounds sexy numbers, but when you actually look at them side by side, no, you can't do that. WWE now, and remember what I said before. Remember when I said before, WWE could have 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 less fans in a building than they did 3 years ago. But if they're charging almost twice the price that they did 3-4 years ago, they're still making more money now than they did at that time. It's not about specific just numbers anymore. It's about the people who are willing to pay an extreme amount of money. How much money? And I'll leave you with this before we move on, because we got a show to do. I'll leave you with this. For everybody that's tuning in with me right now, chances are you did not go to WWE Raw live and in person today. How much money do you think WWE made off of you and I today by watching in the comfort of our own home? How much money do you think they made? Pennies? See what I mean? You can't compare the people live in attendance to now, because when people have an insanely awesome time and the live events is where it's at, they're going to pay the money. You look at AEW pay-per-views. Forbidden Door is the weakest one because they use talent that a lot of people in the United States just honestly don't have a connection with. That's just a fact. But you look at AEW's pay-per-view numbers, and they're usually very solid. We don't know exactly what the number is because it's just a figment of somebody's, estimation. But they're still consistently solid because AEW's gained a reputation that, say what you want about weekly TV, say what you want about how this is handled or this is handled or whatever, but their pay-per-views always deliver and give you more than what you paid for. And that's a reputation, and that's a good reputation to have. So this is what we're watching before our very eyes. It sucks. As a regular wrestling fan, this sucks for Sami Zayn. It sucks for the Street Profits. Just think about the way the Street Profits have been used the last couple of years. I mean, you would have thought by now Montez Ford would be main eventing with a singles career. Nothing against Angelo Dawkins. But they have done a shit job with those two guys. And then you finally bring them back to Raw. You put them back on TV. And how did it start off? It's nothing personal. We want the titles. We want the titles, want the titles, want the titles. Seth Rollins comes around. Seth, we don't want to be around you. It's about the titles. Titles, titles, titles. Then suddenly, Montez Ford and Seth Rollins are double dating. Next thing you know, they're buddy-buddy. And then you have this comedy stuff going on and the stuff with Joe Hendry and everything like that. And they finally win the tag titles. Like, okay, finally. After years, maybe they're going to really, put some solidify their reign. And in 14 fucking days, they lost it. And you know what it feels like? It feels like the Vision lost the titles as a way to get Maxxine Dupri in the group. It feels like Sami Zayn won the title as a way to get CM Punk on SmackDown. They're not doing a transfer window. They're not doing trades. CM Punk just deciding to go to SmackDown because he wants to. How do you explain that in storyline? So instead of doing a trade, doing a draft, doing a transfer window, doing something, it's like, okay, we don't want CM Punk to beat Cody Rhodes. No. If we're going to have a match like that, that's got to be on a bigger platform. Fuck Italy. Fuck Saudi Arabia. No. We got SummerSlam. WrestleMania. No. Fuck that. Obafemi versus Roman Reigns. No. Fuck SummerSlam. No, that's WrestleMania. So what they're doing now is they're booking certain things to advance storylines. Why did Division lose the belts 2 weeks ago? The only reason why they lost 2 weeks ago is for a reason to get Maxxine Dupri in the group. Maxxine Dupri, she could have easily helped them retain the tag titles, but it just looks bigger because she nutted Angelo Dawkins and they lost the titles because of it. So now you're back to where you were 2 weeks ago and Maxxine Dupri is in the deal. So now you want CM Punk on SmackDown and you want him as champion, but you don't want him to dethrone Cody Rhodes. So what do? Oh, to satisfy Saudi Arabia, we'll do a three-way. We'll have Sami win in Saudi because that'll be almost a religious moment for the fans there. It'll be very important for Sami Zayn. And then that's our way to get CM Punk moved to SmackDown without a trade, without a draft, and without just moving him. Because remember, before CM Punk, before WrestleMania, CM Punk teased to Cody Rhodes. One day I'm going to be going for that. And we thought, okay, one day CM Punk is going to be on SmackDown. He's going to challenge Cody Rhodes for that championship, and it may happen at WrestleMania next year. So how do you get CM Punk on SmackDown the easy way? Oh, why did we have a Sami Zayn title defense on Raw tonight? Why? Why? Because Adam Pearce booked it? What the fuck was the administrative leave for Nick Aldis, where he shows up today anyway? And Nick Aldis ends up booking CM Punk to face Sami Zayn. Does that make any sense to you? What was the purpose of doing this administrative leave with Gunther and Nick Aldis? Just to have Nick Aldis show up in Chicago and he's booking matches anyway. You see where I'm going with this. So they're doing these major decisions as a lazy, let's face what it is. It's a lazy way out. It's a lazy creative way to get things done. In the past, if you wanted to move someone to a different brand without doing drafts or trades or anything like that, you had to come up with a nice, interesting storyline to lead up to that. Whether someone jumps this person shows up here, and this is that, whatever it is. If you decide you want to get this person versus this person, but right now there's no storyline between the two, and you want to have it happen, what was the easiest way to do it? Tournament. Do a tournament. Okay, we want to have this person face this person, but we don't have a storyline. Let them win a tournament, and now they get the opportunity. Sometimes they don't even want to do that. You win a tournament, and you don't get the opportunity after all. We always thought Oba versus Brock was happening at SummerSlam. As soon as Brock showed up and attacked Obafemi before Italy, you knew it was going to 3. You knew it was going to 3. The storyline made sense. Contrary to what Eric Bischoff will whine about to all of you, this makes absolutely no sense at all. It makes complete sense. Brock Lesnar showed up 7 weeks before WrestleMania, and Brock Lesnar issued an open challenge for WrestleMania. 1 week into Brock Lesnar's open challenge, Obafemi shows up and leaves Brock laying. Challenge accepted. Obafemi cuts a promo on Raw. The week after Penta stops his open challenge, because Penta stopped his open challenge, Obafemi can't answer it. Obafemi cuts a promo and says, since someone else stopped their open challenge, I will stop my own open challenge. 1 week later, Brock Lesnar answers it. Even though he retired, he still answered it. And what happened in Italy? Brock Lesnar made it 1-1. So we knew SummerSlam was going to 3. Why even put Oba in that tournament if he wasn't going to get the title shot after all? Well, lazy booking, lazy creative booking. Now, whenever they decide, yeah, you know what, let's go with Oba as the champion. Or how do we do that? Right now, Oba's not feuding with Gunther or Roman or LA Knight or Seth Rollins, whoever's the champion at the time. I got it. Remember, he won King of the Ring and he didn't do it? Now you could get Adam Pearce that'll say, it is official. It is official. He won the King of the Ring. We'll grant it. And that's how you do it. These are very lazy, creative ways to do it. I don't mind shock victories or people unexpected. Expect the unexpected. That was a catchphrase 30 years ago. Expect the unexpected. We're getting some of that now, but you're seeing it done in a way that is designed mainly to maximize the value of the expenditure that fans are doing live in these buildings. For us at home, we don't matter like we used to. Because if I stop watching Netflix, if I stop watching Raw tomorrow, Netflix, WWE still gets paid the same TV deal. If it goes down 100,000 viewers, WWE still gets paid the same amount of money. All right. And if I stop watching, someone else will. There's always going to be turnover. So they're not booking like they used to. This is a much different world now as far as wrestling goes. And this is why when it comes to Triple H or it comes to the writing team, when it comes to the wrestlers involved, they all get it. Drew McIntyre gets it. CM Punk gets it. Cody Rhodes gets it better than anybody else. These guys get it. Roman Reigns. They try to shoot in promos to make it, blur the line between reality, but Roman Reigns, big fucking corporate guy. Big corporate guy. This Roman won't show up in a suit most of the time. But Roman Reigns, big corporate guy. CM Punk, big corporate guy. Cody Rhodes, the ultimate corporate guy of them all right now. John Cena, corporate guy. Gunther has been incorporated. Like everybody. Look at this. Just ironically, I had this in my computer, in this file. I don't know why I never deleted it, but I saw it today. Right before we went live, I was like, holy shit, I didn't even realize I still had this in my computer. And this is a clip that pissed off a lot of people several months ago. Who remembers this?
We just simply don't touch politics. As a company, like nothing about the political climate is reflected in the product anymore. And I think in some ways, that's also a reflection of the society we currently live in and the sensitivity to these things. But I also think it's because I think WWE is meant to be like an escape from all that stuff, especially the more real and the more it's felt on a day-to-day basis for some people. And it's not like an abstract idea when you get into the conversation of tariffs. People are feeling that at the grocery store or, whatever, gas station. They're feeling it day-to-day life, or they will. The potential to feel it is certainly there. So I think you want to go somewhere where you just kind of forget about that stuff altogether. And I think that's what WWE provides now, where politics has become so into the mainstream and it's almost turned into an entertainment form in its own right, which I have a lot to say about, but I won't get into that. All this to say, WWE, I think, is a place to kind of take that hat off and just enjoy it for what it is.
Did you ever think you'd hear that come out of Sami Zayn's mouth? I mean, just Sami Zayn saying that. That says a lot. That says a lot. Here's a little wrestling news before we get into a few other things. Did you see what happened with Chelsea Green online? Chelsea Green actually deactivated her Twitter, her X account, because people started to call her out saying that she's MAGA. Now, the funny thing is, if you remember, when Chelsea Green was going to go to the UFC fight, Chelsea Green posted this on social media a month and a half ago and said, doing my job and supporting the community and not mutually exclusive. I'll continue to advocate for human rights, whether you approve or not. All right. That was a month and a half ago. She had to defend her actions. If you go to UFC's event, then you're MAGA. If you celebrate the 4th of July, you're pro-Trump. And what you see happening online is disgusting. It is disgusting. Just because you support this country, you celebrate this country now, you automatically get mixed in with a certain group of people. And you had one Pollock, one asshole, somebody that writes, why did it take finding out Chelsea Green was MAGA for ends to find out, to admit she was trash? And she had to spell it out to this person. I'm a Canadian citizen. I can't vote in America. I'm not MAGA. I'm a liberal Democrat. When I become a citizen, I'll vote for a president who believes in equal human rights. And she took her X account down because this is what it's become. We had that conversation yesterday when we talked about Kevin Nash, or so we say Kerwin White, or Karen Nash, or even Jim Cornette and others. All right. They will bunch everybody in one group. And God forbid, you celebrate this, you celebrate that. You're accused of supporting a president that abused children and this and that. And it's out of control. It is really out of control. And now you got, look at Liv Morgan. Look at Liv Morgan. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this. Liv Morgan's MAGA boyfriend, Landon Hardwick, follows this homophobic conservative influencer named Duke Gomez, who sells anti-Pride Month shirts that say, make rainbows straight again. I am definitely not in favor with any of that. But this is what people do now. You want to go after someone, you got to go after, their political affiliation, or you accuse them of something. You support, look at even with wrestling, and you look at AEW. You look at some people that are no longer in that company without me mentioning names, and simply because Kenny Omega is still friendly with someone that he hopes is redeemable and maybe has bettered himself over years, he will still get lambasted and destroyed over it. It is a disgusting climate to watch in real time. And unfortunately, that has taken control, because when you have Chelsea Green deactivating her account, that she can't even just, do this, even Liv Morgan, dates a guy who, I don't care what Liv Morgan's political affiliation is. But what if Liv Morgan is not political in any way, shape, or form, and she just dates the guy because, she likes him and they get along? Politics has got to be the front conversation for everything. And again, you hear that Sami Zayn comment. Would you ever expect to hear that out of Sami Zayn's mouth? Especially when you think about the fact that Triple H is at the White House and all this other shit going on. WWE is an entirely different company. Not simply because the billion-dollar assholes sold it. It is an entirely different entity right now. And, it's a shame. It's a shame to see what things are turning into. So, all right, let's get into a couple other things. Let's get into a couple of quick news tidbits. We'll get into Raw. We'll dissect it a little bit more because quite a few things happened on Raw today. The picture of Otis and Tozawa. Oh my God. The picture, this picture, that's not only Maxxine Dupri driving away, that's your contract extension driving away. With all due respect, I have nothing personal against Tozawa, but you ain't Ron Killings. And as far as I know, you're not a computer technician behind the scenes. You're not coffee gophering anybody. You're not typing up stuff. You're not doing errands. You don't work in the legal department. You're not a physician. You're not a trainer backstage. You're not a guidance counselor. You're an on-air talent. So unless you're making minimum wage or you're paying them to say there, you tell me what Tozawa's possible future is. And you know what's going to happen. Ultimately, Tozawa will get let go, and then people will be like, now he can show what he truly is. That's where this is going. Otis, I kind of feel bad with also. But Otis, they have done absolutely nothing with. Absolutely nothing with. And again, you go back to the Sheamus situation. All right? It's easy to figure out the Sheamus situation. Sheamus is approaching 50. Sheamus has been very injury prone, dealing with the spinal stenosis, that luckily he was able to overcome a little bit. But, WWE turned around and they said, look, we're going to keep you around. You know, you're going to take a significant pay cut because we're not going to use you the way we did in the past. And Sheamus said, no, thank you. So Sheamus is going to get up and leave. And let me also say this too, because I know this is trending on X right now. Shame on Bryan Alvarez. Shame on Bryan Alvarez. Because Bryan Alvarez claims he talked to a bunch of people in AEW, and a lot of them said, oh, we like Sheamus, but we don't want him in this company. All right. First of all, no one knows if you talk to anybody and nobody. But second of all, the people you talk to is a very, very tiny fraction of that entire company. And just because you got a few extra people that said, nah, we don't think Sheamus would be a good fit, you don't run with that and put that online. That's a very careless thing to do because you put that out there that AEW is against signing Sheamus. And that's disrespectful to Sheamus, and that's wrong because you're not talking to the, even if you're talking to talent, they're not the ones that make the decisions. All right. I think that's very reckless. All right. You keep that to yourself and you let it play out. But putting that out there, nobody fucking knows who you talk to. Nobody knows if you even talk to anybody. I'm not calling him a liar, but that's just careless. You get a few people that, and listen, I do my shows here. A shitload of you out there, 99% of you out there don't follow Japanese wrestling. If I was Dave Meltzer, probably a third or half of you do follow Japanese wrestling. If I start giving you news on CMLL and AAA and stuff more, a lot of you out there probably wouldn't be interested. What's my point? It's because I know my audience and I know all of you out there what your preferences are. And, you know, the people that Bryan Alvarez talked to, as many people that he is friendly with, there's people out there that don't like him. So if you have common, you know, conversations and common thoughts with people and you all gravitate to the same things, all right, you kind of would, you know, go in a certain direction. And if you thought Sheamus was a good fit in AEW, you wouldn't have said a damn thing. So I just think that's very careless because you talked to a few people and the majority of them said, you know, we like Sheamus, but I don't think it's a good fit in this company. No, but Mick Foley is, or this person is, and this person is. You know, I just think it's disrespectful, in my honest opinion. You know, especially to go out of your way for him where you don't go out of your way for a lot of others who were released in the past. So, all right. So with Sheamus, he's done. No retirement match because he's not retiring. See, Adam Copeland, I'm not saying that WWE thought he was retiring, but they were treating it as this is your final match in the WWE. Sure. Now, under TKO's regime, if Adam Copeland comes back in the future, I'm sure they would give him the Brock Lesnar treatment. Hey, you want to come out of retirement for a match? Absolutely, man. Let's just do it on a big platform where we could charge a shitload of money for tickets and on location. But Sheamus done with the company. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. You know what he can do, and you know what he can't do. You know the presentation. Right now, what it comes down to is, would he be a good fit for TNA? Would he be a good fit for AEW? Would he be a good fit for Japan? Somebody reported CMLL. The way I answer that to all of you out there is, look at the rosters for each company and say to yourself, who in that company would you like to see Sheamus go up against or team with? And you'll be able to figure out which company he would be a very good fit for. Would he be a good fit in NWA? No. Can't think of one person I'd want him to face. Would he be a good fit in CMLL? No. For what? Like, if you look at that roster, for what? You look at AEW, I think AEW has the best promise because there are a lot of wrestlers there that he could have some bangers with. TNA, it doesn't just feel like it fits. So we'll see what happens. But he's done. He's not going to be on TV again. There's not going to be a go-away match. There's not going to be a thank you Sheamus Day. He's just going to exit. And when he goes wherever he goes, I should know by Wednesday if he owns the trademark to Sheamus O'Shaughnessy, because he was using that name before he went to WWE. So there's a good chance he could still call himself Sheamus wherever he goes. It's kind of like Christian Cage. You know, they call him Christian Cage. They don't just call him Christian. I think if Sheamus were able to use it, it'll probably be Sheamus O'Shaughnessy wherever he goes, but doesn't mean that when he has a confrontation with someone has to say the last name every time. If somebody calls me up and says, hey, Anthony, you want to go out to eat? They don't call me up and say, hey, Anthony de Blasi, you want to go out to eat? Like, nobody calls me by my last name and knows me personally or calls me out. You know, hey, Anthony, watch where you're walking. You don't just go, hey, Anthony de Blasi, watch where you're walking. Stupid. All right. Let's move on. Oh, Jey Uso. All right. Listen, I got a little heat because I advertised that I have the divorce documents. Okay. I want to make something clear. TMZ is the one that put this story out there. So now the whole world knows about it. I am not stupid. I edited out all of the personal information about Jey Uso and his wife. I edited out their home addresses. I edited out some very private information. But for those that don't know, all right, Jey Uso just got a new neck tattoo. He went out and got a new neck tattoo, Proverbs 17:17. Has to do with family, staying by your side. But while Jey Uso went out and got a neck tattoo, his wife, Takasiya, I think that's how you pronounce her name, Takasiya Fatu, well, she went out and got a divorce attorney. She is filed for divorce after 12 years of marriage. And I have the documents. I will share them with you. Again, I absolutely have not included any personal information that would be considered private or a cheap dick move on my part. But for anybody that is interested, if you want to look at your screen, I will show it to you very, very quickly. She filed for divorce on June 24th. And there's not much to put in here. Like, if I ever showed you guys the Perry Saturn divorce papers, the allegations that, oh my God, I get beat up. I would get run over like freaking Stan Hansen ran over that AWA title. I would get the shit knocked out of me if I ever revealed that. When I ended up getting those papers by accident, I got phone calls from Perry Saturn's ex-wife and lawyer that they were threatening me if I didn't reveal where he lived because they were trying to serve him with shit. That's a long time ago and a different story for a different night. But, you know, since I've been involved in the insurance and legal world, I have access to the court system. So this is basically the divorce papers. And to get into some specifics, let's see. A vinsulo matrimony is a bond of marriage. Basically, Jey Uso's wife is trying to get out of that bond so she can legally remarry. They have one minor child together who was born in 2012. We saw his son when Jey Uso won the world championship. And she wants primary custody of their child, which I think that is going to become pretty heated between Jey Uso and his wife. Just to get into a few other things, the minor child has lived with the plaintiff and the defendant. Yes, I edited the address out. And it goes on to say that plaintiff knows no other person not a party to the proceeding, who has physical custody of the child. She wants full, primary custody. She'll give him visitation, but that's what she wants. She also wants the house, and she wants her legal fees paid. I'm trying to find where, oh yeah, here it is. Plaintiff requests, now the plaintiff is the wife. She requests that the assets be equally divided by the court. She wants the marital debt to be equally distributed by the court. She wants premarital and non-marital property, and it obviously, like I said, with the house. And then you go a little bit further, you could see she wants her attorney fees paid. So, yeah, you see, pending the final determination by the court of the right of either party to alimony, neither party shall make any substantial change to the assets of the party's estate, except in the course of ordinary business, which means that Jey Uso cannot suddenly put the house into Rikishi's name. That is basically the deal. See? So if anyone out there is watching video, or if you go back and you rewatch this, where are we? We're around like the 53-minute mark. You could pause the show and you could look at, these papers. I'm the only one online that has this. See? You see, there you go. You see, this is what she's trying to be awarded to. So she wants the custody of the kid. And the only thing it doesn't say in these papers, see, edited by Don Tony for privacy. The only thing that she doesn't say in these papers is when they got legally separated. They were legally separated. And yes, Jey Uso is involved with Jada Parker. They probably got involved after Jey and his wife got separated. But again, I'm only putting this out there so you could see a little bit of a court reference. No information that I just showed you is anything that is revealing outside of what TMZ told you. But I figured you want to see the papers because I got the papers. So there you go. Once we find out more, we'll share it. And I agree with you, Vance. Poor Sami. It's a shame because, that guy, again, I get why some people look at Sami Zayn and they don't see world champion. You can't have that mentality. And this is why when I did the thumbnail for this episode, I included the IWC as doing Sami dirty also. Because if you've watched the IWC over the last couple of days, a ton of people were calling for Sami Zayn's demise. And the thing is this, I remember a time in the 90s, and we talked about this yesterday, where anything could happen in the World Wrestling Federation. Anything could happen. And the thing is that if you start stopping getting behind certain people because for TKO's size, for the amount of money that is being generated, Sami Zayn, maybe when he was Sami Uso, with the innocent smiles on his face and, falling in love with him as a bloodline member. Like at that time, sell lots of merchandise. Now, he's not going to be a big revenue grabber. That if you start stopping the hope that somebody that you invest in as a fan has no shot, then, it makes what Michael P.S. Hayes said about Chelsea Green that much more important, or others out there. And wrestlers like even Chad Gable and others. Before Chad Gable did El Grande Americano, him facing Gunther, remember, there was people crying in the crowd. I mean, sure, we never thought Chad Gable would be champion at that time. But many people said, one day before he retires, it gives a lot of Kurt Angle vibes. You start having that idea that unless it's the biggest and of the big, from the Cenas to the Lesnars to Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes and CM Punk and, eventually Braun Breaker and, possibly, Jacob Fatu or Gunther, if you start making it seem like, unless you're on this elite level, why do you think LA Knight has so much of a fucking problem. LA Knight, when he had the confrontation with Seth Rollins on Raw tonight, it was hilarious. It was hilarious. But LA Knight, basically dropping truth bombs. A couple of years ago, the guy was the hottest person in that company. But again, you've heard me say this the last couple of years. LA Knight came into the WWE 2 years too early. Came in 2 or 3 years too early. Because you were in the middle of Roman Reigns' historic run for this generation. Historic run. You are not going to throw a monkey wrench in that just so LA Knight could have a little run on the side. Do you remember when WWE went to Puerto Rico and Rhea Ripley was in the midst of doing what she was doing? And people were like, put the belt on Zelina Vega, even if it's just for one night. Just because what happened in Puerto Rico, they got to put the belt on it, even if it's just for 1 week. No. You can't break up, the momentum and what you're doing at that time simply to get that warm feeling inside, that tingly feeling that you wish you could bottle and reopen on a bad day. So you definitely don't want to start really minimizing who can be world champion and who can't. And the idea is that a couple of years ago, people were all for Sami Zayn becoming world champion. When he fought Roman in Elimination Chamber, most of us knew he had no shot. But there were people out there that really, really were hoping that could happen. He finishes his story. And simply because of Shock TV and doing it on Raw, you're like planning the guy's demise. And sure, CM Punk is a very popular wrestler. So not a lot of people are going to get angry at CM Punk here. CM Punk didn't want to do Sami dirty. But when you see how people have handled Sami Zayn since he won that title, I think it's terrible. It's terrible. Yesterday when I did the sit down, I will admit it. When people were asking me yesterday if I thought Sami was losing the title today, my answer was, I don't think WWE is going to do him dirty like that. I think WWE, because of how hard Sami Zayn has worked over the years, you don't give someone a title because they're a hard worker. You don't give someone a title because they're there a long time. You don't give someone a title because they deserved it. I hate the you deserve it stuff. I use the term earned. Sami Zayn has earned the opportunity to hold that undisputed WWE championship. He has earned that opportunity. And when he was doing his stuff with the bloodline, he was in a situation where he was not going to win the championship because of Roman. And once Cody came back to the WWE, Cody was finishing that story. Whether people want to believe it or not, they want to convince themselves that The Rock almost sabotaged it, Cody was finishing his story. Cody is the number one guy in that company. All right, you just look at everything about him and you understand that you are not going to sabotage that and then lose all credibility in the process. Sami Zayn, I didn't think they were going to do this guy dirty like this because there's enough people that remember, Sami early on. Even when people started to, see, going back to when he fought John Cena, with John Cena's open challenges, opened some people's eyes. When Sami was the NXT champion, when Sami started having the work with Kevin Owens, then later on, the lighthearted comedic side when he was doing his stuff with Johnny Knoxville and Jackass. And then suddenly comes into the bloodline and he becomes the most beloved member of them all. I mean, I think everybody out there at some point bought something that said Sami Uso on it or something bloodline involving Sami. It was a very big deal. And sure, WWE's done a shit job with Sami Zayn the last year and a half or so. Need we bring up last year with Karrion Kross? They did a terrible job with both of those guys. It just kept going on and on and on and on and on and on and on. So blame WWE for doing a garbage job with Sami Zayn the last year and a half. But now he had the opportunity, won it in Saudi Arabia. You know what this reminds me of? I just thought about it. It'll sound like a bad comparison when I first say it, but when you think about it, you're going to say, spot on. Carmelo Hayes. Carmelo Hayes. Carmelo Hayes was starting to get some momentum. And I think it peaked with the John Cena tournament. And he put on that monster match. And people were like, remember, 2026, WWE's going to have a monster year for Carmelo Hayes. Remember people were reporting that? Carmelo Hayes ended up winning the United States Championship. And Carmelo Hayes had a little bit of a run with it. And then we got right before WrestleMania. And whether people wanted to admit it or not, and some people in the news world would not admit it because they don't want to ruin their connections in WWE, especially with creative. But WWE Creative basically said to Carmelo Hayes, listen, did a great job with that title. Unfortunately, you're not big enough for WrestleMania, and we don't mean height. So we're going to put the belt on Sami Zayn right before WrestleMania so Trick Williams could beat him for the title. But Trick and I could do magic together. That's nice and everything. Yeah, that was NXT, but this is the main roster. Mello, you kept the belt warm, but now it's WrestleMania time, and you got to give it to the big boys. And honestly, they fucked Carmelo Hayes. Go back to WrestleMania. Whether people are afraid to admit shit like that. That guy should have went into WrestleMania and defended that title, even if it was a three-way, him versus Sammy versus Trick. But they felt that Carmelo Hayes versus Trick Williams was not strong enough for WrestleMania, so they put Sami Zayn in that spot instead, and you get fucking Mr. Potato Head guy and the other shit that went on with that, all that dopey shit. And then we got what we got at WrestleMania, and does it feel like Carmelo Hayes has ever rebounded from that? No. So this reminds me a little bit of Carmelo Hayes. And it's ironic because it was Sami Zayn who took the belt away from Carmelo Hayes. Now they took the belt away from Sami Zayn. Sami, great. You won it in Saudi Arabia. You gave that magical religious moment to the Saudis out there. Awesome. You finished your story and this and that. But we got SummerSlam coming up. But you thought I was big enough for WrestleMania. Well, that was WrestleMania. But this is SummerSlam. And CM Punk is returning. So we're going to have the summer of Punk. And you're going to drop the title right before SummerSlam. That's what it feels like to me. Do you feel like they did Sammy dirty? Put CM Punk aside for a minute. Even if you are the biggest CM Punk fan out there, do you feel like they did Sammy dirty? To me, this is like Christian Cage meets Carmelo Hayes. That's what it feels like to me. 9 days he had that belt. 9 days. And he got his moment, but that's it. You know, it's almost like a virgin who loses his virginity, and he loses it with the most amazing woman or man, whatever floats your boat. And he thinks that something special is going to come out of this. Wow, we had a spectacular night. Let's continue this guy. No. We're going to let Chick Magnet take over. CM Punk. Chick Magnet Punk. So that's what we got. That is what we got. All right. We actually covered quite a bit of wrestling news while we were having this discussion. They are starting to show the previews for WWE Unreal Season 3. It debuts July 21st, which is only 2 weeks from now. And you could see what's changing with WWE Unreal. It is more of like, I don't want to say behind the scenes WrestleMania. You know, WWE was doing those documentaries like the road to WrestleMania for particular individuals. They were doing that for a few years. WWE Unreal is starting to feel like that. And it's basically WrestleMania for some, like AJ Lee and, you know, some stuff with Braun Breaker. But it's also John Cena's retirement. It is more of behind the scenes leading up to the moments we see on TV. That is a little bit different than what was in the past. And, they're basically, like they're working the work, as we always say. I mean, I hate using terminology like that, but that's what it is. It's like when Kramer on Seinfeld had a coffee table book about coffee tables. That's what this is it. You're suddenly not going to, we're going to pull the curtain back. No, this is going to be all real. Everything else we do, this is going to be real. Especially when you tell people that you don't know that the cameras are all around you. So you don't know, like, should I be in character? Should I not be in character? So it's going to be different. I think I got news for you. I think season 3 might be the best season of them all. I really do. I think season 3 might be the best one of them all. I mean, of course, we want to see what John Cena cooks up this time with a magical phrase or something. Like, you ever watched John Cena interviews recently? And it's not just with ESPN or Chris Van Vliet or stuff like that. If you watch even in the entertainment world, you can't just simply ask John Cena, what's your favorite color? He doesn't just come back and say purple. Like, he's got to give 9 sentences to lead up to why it's turquoise, light greenish, blue, white, off-white, with a little hint of yellow in the middle. Like, he's got to give, these very complicated answers. John, what do you fear? I fear the dark. I fear mortality. No, he's got to give this whole profession, and halfway through it, if you're being real, you start falling asleep when you're hearing it. So, Benjamin says, Cena's a narcissist that loves to blab. I don't know if he's a narcissist, but he certainly loves to blab. Congratulations to Mandy Rose and her hubby, Tino Sabatelli. If you thought Mandy Rose was returning to wrestling anytime soon, forget it. She is now pregnant. They are expecting their first child, and she will not be returning to the wrestling ring anytime soon. Congratulations go out to Nixon Newell and, as we know, as Tegan Knox and Miranda Lees. They both got engaged, so congratulations to the both of them. Also, a couple other things. And then we'll get into Raw, because we really don't have much else as far as news go. Tony Khan announced that AEW All Out, not All In, but All Out is going to be taking place in Chicago September 26th at Hoffman Estates at the Now Arena. That is much later in the year. And they're doing what we kind of wanted them to do years ago, is they're not having All In and All Out happen so close together. So because All In is happening in August, they're not going to have All Out until the end of September. I like that. Gives time to build up maybe some new feuds coming out of All In. So that's one deal. Also, Ring of Honor, their Death Before Dishonor event, that is going to take place Friday, August 21st from the 2300 Arena, the former ECW Arena. And I wish Tony Khan would bring back the Ring of Honor Hall of Fame a little bit more. I could think of some very big names in and around Philly, the Northeast, that should go into that Ring of Honor Hall of Fame. So maybe Tony Khan ends up doing that. We'll see. Jake the Snake Roberts revealed that he is no longer employed in AEW. But if you tune into his interview, you know for a fact that if Tony Khan called him tomorrow and says, hey, we'd love for you to come back to the company, he would come back in a second. So he is currently not employed by anybody. MLW is doing a storyline with Baron Corbin, that because we hear all the rumors that WWE may be bringing back Baron Corbin, that Baron Corbin wants a raise and he wants all these fringe benefits. So the storyline is MLW is like, you greedy bitch. Just for that, we're going to strip you of the tag titles and you're not coming back to the company. Until you get off your high horse and you stop making all these outrageous demands, you're not coming back to MLW. So that's their way of writing him off TV. Or if he ends up not going back to WWE. I don't know why something happened to my fingers. I think they accidentally got crazy glued. I don't know. But for some reason, whenever we talk about Baron Corbin and, if he doesn't come back to WWE, I get weird reactions from my fingers. But if he doesn't come back to the WWE, then you'll probably see him pop up in MLW again. And one other thing. Do I have the picture? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Oh, the gift that keeps on giving. Oh, he looks like an innocent little Mexican there, but El Hijo del Viqueño is once again injured. He blew out his fucking knee. It's not a major surgery, but he will be out for the foreseeable future. Guy got injured again. He was doing work before NXT, I think last week, it was, and he injured his knee. People thought it was just a sprain, that he'll just be out of action for a short period of time. Nope, he had to get minor knee surgery. So he will be out of action for the foreseeable future. So at least Rey Fenix is not injured, right? At least, I got to show you this. Has everybody already seen the recent photo of Bronson Reed? We had a spectacular conversation about Bronson Reed yesterday. And I meant it. Some wrestlers, when you lose a significant amount of weight and your whole gimmick is a monster, sometimes it could damage your career. Now, I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that Bronson Reed's career could be damaged because of this. I personally think it'll improve his health. It'll minimize his pain. I think his quality of life will improve. And if he ever becomes single again, he'll probably get laid every night. Because if you haven't seen, this is what Bronson Reed looks like right now. The motherfucker is jacked. The guy's dropped about 100 pounds. Maybe even more. I mean, that guy's waist looks smaller than mine. That's Bronson Reed right now. And he was dressed like that as a tribute to Steve Austin on the 4th of July, by the way. But look at that guy. I mean, he's strong enough and, big enough that I think he'll still be impressive, but he's going to have to change his repertoire up. You do a tsunami and you're 240 pounds, it's much different than being 360. You do a tsunami, it's more like an Uso splash now, or a Rey Mysterio splash, or better yet, he might as well do the shimmy shimmy when he's on the top rope, because now he's light. He's light. People are going to kick out of too when he does a tsunami. Michael Cole can't do tsunami. No, tsunami. Now it's going to be like tsunami. Tsunami for a 2. He's going to have to change his repertoire up. Yeah, he used to say, as Kev would say, we would make fun of every wrestler was 330. Otis was 330. Bronson Reed was 330. I think Braun Strowman was 330. They kept using the 330 reference, but in reality, I think Bronson Reed was 360. I think he was legit 360. So I used to be 365. A lot of you seen those pictures before. I am not proud of it, and I do not believe I have them handy. Thank God. Some of you have seen it. I used to weigh 365. I always remembered it because that's how many days out of the year. Every day every day of the year was a pound. So, all right, let's do a little recap of Raw. We'll answer a couple of questions, and we shall jet. Before we recap Raw, let me give a couple of quick super shout-outs, if you don't mind. Chainsaw Charlie, thank you very much, my friend. The Street Profits had the titles for 14 days. What was the point? Again, I think the point was how to get Maxxine Dupri in the Vision and do something where the Vision would accept her. Like, if you watch, like, Logan Paul is like, what the hell's this? Even Braun Breaker for a few moments was a little confused. But, Paul Heyman complimented Maxxine Dupri. We talked for a while that, they were preparing to put Maxxine Dupri in the Vision. Some people are like, oh, this is like a bad version of Judgment Day. No, it's not. Why? Because it's one woman and four guys. Now whenever there's one woman and four guys, why don't you just say it's the LWO? Like, it's just because it's one woman and three guys or four guys. It doesn't mimic a faction. But, I'm still concerned about Austin Theory's future. It'll be pretty fucking funny. I think he might have bought himself a little extra time. But I'm still concerned about Austin Theory's future. But I think the whole reason to put the belts on the Street Profits was so Maxxine Dupri could have an important moment to justify her being put in the Vision. That's what I think it is. Now, if I'm the Street Profits, like, come on, man. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. But I will say this. I got some fan video of the nut shot she gave Angelo Dawkins. Let me tell you something. If you remember Tonga Loa's debut, his nut shot, I mean, it was like an air ball, but instead of a basketball, it was an air ball to the balls. I mean, he just totally missed. Look at Maxxine Dupri's nut shot to Angelo Dawkins. Look at this in slow motion. Just watch her arms. Angelo Dawkins, he's not even doing pee-pee tonight. That was probably the greatest nut shot I have seen by a woman in a very, very long time, because you know what happens with a lot of women when they do nut shots. What do they usually do? They usually go sideways. If you actually watch closely, we've seen it in TNA more than anything. We've seen it happen in NXT once in a blue moon. It happens very rarely in AEW. You see them do a nut shot. They go between the legs. And I'm not trying to say this to sound disgusting, but I don't know if the women are like, I don't want to touch testicles. I don't know if they intentionally, that's why they go sideways. But instead of just going up, they go like this. They go like this. It happens all the time. Just watch it. You'll see. Instead of just going up, it's like, whoop. Maxxine Dupri, man, just look at it again. She's thinking like Tonga Loa, eat your fucking heart out. Well, look at this. Boom. Perfect. She hit his belly button. That's how high she went. That was good. She earned her pay. All right. Yeah, let's get into Raw. Let me pull up my notes. Put up my notes. Oh, we do have two more super shout outs. If you don't mind. Jermaine Reyes. Any chance we're getting a New York City street fight between Cody and Gunther at Saturday night's main event at Madison Square Garden? Any updates on Randy Orton's return? Randy Orton was booked for Fanatics, and he was removed last week. No explanation given. Randy Orton did not even put an apology online. Randy Orton does not post many videos, and when he does, it's usually like his kid's giving an RKO in a pool, or if he's by the beach or something like that. But I truthfully thought that Randy Orton would have issued some type of even if he just wrote a quick tweet that says, listen, I'm with my family, we're going to be out of the country, or my kid's getting graduated, or, something. I don't think there's any contract issues. But it was very interesting that Randy Orton was removed from Fanatics because he wasn't close to a return on television, but appearing at Fanatics, was supposed to be a big thing. And, he was one of the more popular people that was selling very well. I think even one of the 2 days he was advertised was sold out, but he canceled last minute. So no, there's no update as of right now. I don't think there's any falling out with him, But it is interesting to have that road to WrestleMania. Pat McAfee stuff was a train wreck. But even afterwards, like nothing was done to repair that. He just left and that was it. I kind of feel that 2027 might be I truthfully think 2027 or 2028 is going to be the Randy Orton retirement tour. I know that he said he could go another 5 years, but I just get a feeling that it could happen a little bit sooner. It sure feels like WWE is going to capitalize on some of these, retirement tours down the line. I mean, obviously John Cena was going to have one all by his lonesome, and that's why Goldberg wasn't having one and AJ Styles was not having one. You don't have many people, and I don't think Randy Orton would have a full year with retirement, but I think in the next year or two, you're going to see Randy Orton, or better yet, Randy Orton getting the Brock Lesnar treatment, where Randy Orton kind of retires, but maybe comes back once in a while to have a match here and there. Randy still has some unfinished business. There is definitely enough for Randy to do, but right now, no updates at all. As far as the New York City street fight with Gunther and Cody Rhodes, after what we saw on Raw tonight, that is very much of a possibility. But I will tell you, if you do it like an unsanctioned match. I mean, the fact that they did not clear Cody might lead up to something with Saturday night's main event. And the reason why I say that is because Saturday night's main event is next Saturday. There's only one more Raw. Yes, there's 2 SmackDowns, but there's only one more Raw until Saturday night's main event. So if Cody is not cleared to compete, maybe he wants Gunther anyway and WWE unsanctions it, then you could have a possibility. But, it's not as easy to have like an unsanctioned match as you think, especially, if it's just false count anywhere, if it's just a street fight, fine. But when you have an unsanctioned match, the story is that WWE is not responsible, and you're going to have referees, you're going to have restrictions. But yeah, that is a possibility. And by doing that, it keeps Gunther away from the championship a little bit longer. I have a feeling SummerSlam is going to be Cody versus Punk versus Sami, and we'll see what happens with Gunther. I'm not convinced 100% that it's Gunther versus Nick Aldis. I always get vibes that maybe one day it's going to be Nick Aldis versus Adam Pearce. And I have a feeling fans would get more behind it than we think. But, I think for Saturday night's main event, that is absolutely a possibility of a match. I would be all for it. Joshua, thank you for the 20 spot, my friend. He says he knew it was going to happen, but at the same time, he kind of feels bad for Sami. I do, because, again, I get it. The titles are a prop. And I know Hogan said that in the 90s in Japan and pissed everybody off. The titles are a prop. But to me, it also shows that the company believes in you enough that you could be labeled as the head of their company. I mean, TKO was putting out press releases over the weekend, last week, that Sami's win got 80 million views on social media and this and that. They were making a big fuss about it. And you literally have him lose the title 9 days later. And my problem with it is, how do you set it up where he gets it back? CM Punk is now going to be a regular on SmackDown. He's going to be a regular on SmackDown. And the funny thing is, Nick Aldis, if he gets reinstated, and do not be surprised if Nick Aldis gets reinstated this week or next week. And then you're going to look back on it and you'll be like, wait a minute. Oh, see? This is what I think people will be like, oh, see? they took Nick Aldis off, so Adam Pearce, who's a Raw guy, decided he was going to put Sami Zayn on Raw to defend the title. And Nick Aldis, he gets CM Punk, and that was Nick Aldis' way to get CM Punk on SmackDown. So we take Nick Aldis off of TV for a week to justify why Sami Zayn is fighting the title on Raw. Because why would Nick Aldis agree to have Sami Zayn defend the championship on Raw? So this whole thing about Nick Aldis getting administrative leave was just a way like, how do we get Sami Zayn to fight on Raw? It's in Chicago. We have to have CM Punk fight. We want to put the belt on CM Punk. How do we get Sami on Raw? But Nick Aldis is the GM. Why would Nick Aldis allow Sami to wrestle on Raw? That makes absolutely no sense. Why would Nick Aldis be willing to have a Raw wrestler fight Sami Zayn, who's a SmackDown wrestler? That makes no sense. I get it. Let's put Nick Aldis on administrative leave. And Adam Pearce books it, because Adam Pearce is a Raw guy, and Adam Pearce could do both shows. So now CM Punk's the champion, and poof, Nick Aldis is back. Because Nick Aldis got CM Punk, the WWE management reinstated him. Doesn't it kind of feel like they can't just creatively come up with like great ideas? It was like, remember when, I always brought this up. Remember when Sheamus and Drew McIntyre was going to fight at Clash at the Castle in 2022. Drew McIntyre was the number one contender. And then because it was 4 or 5 weeks still before Clash at the Castle, they kind of had to eat up a few weeks. So they tried to make it seem like Sheamus was going to battle Drew McIntyre for the number one contender spot. Then the match was finally going to happen. Like, good, get that match out of the way. We know Drew's going to get the title shot, whatever. And then what happens? Sheamus, he's got a cough, could be COVID, so he can't fight this week. So they just postponed it to the week later. And then you realize 3 or 4 weeks went by, and we ended up exactly where we were a month earlier. It's like they do all this like shit, like, how do we get from point A to point B in a creative way? Oh, we'll just do this. We'll just suspend someone. We'll just do this instead. How do we get Maxxine on the Vision? Well, she's got to, cost somebody the titles, but the Vision already have the belts. I got it. Let's have the Vision lose the belts for a week or two, and then she could get them back. But doesn't that hurt the Street Profits along the way? Doesn't matter. Street Profits get the belts later on. They're over with the fans. Fans will understand. Like, they're just doing cheap ways. Like, they don't feel challenged anymore. Don't feel challenged. It's like, you know what it feels like? It feels like, it's almost like Game Genie. I know it's a bad, outdated example, but when we were younger, a lot of the video games out there would have these things called Game Genie, or you could put codes in, and you played a game and you just could not figure out, how do I advance to the next level? I can't fucking advance to the next level. No matter how hard I try, I can't advance to this next level. Oh, well, maybe if I just plug this in and suddenly, I'm on twice this, now I can advance. Like, it's just kind of like they're being challenged. How do we get CM Punk on SmackDown and do it in a real good creative way? There is no good creative way. We'll just suspend Nick Aldis. So Adam Pearce will book the match for Raw, but that doesn't make sense. Why would Sami Zayn be on Raw? Well, Adam Pearce does this. And it's like you see things happening like, we want Obafemi versus Brock Lesnar in SummerSlam. We knew that a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. Soon as he came out and low-blowed Obafemi before Italy, we knew that there was going to be a 3. Well, how do we have the 3? Well, we're going to put him in the tournament. Why are we putting him in the tournament? Because he's a big name. And it's a big win. And it'll feel important in Saudi Arabia. But he's not going to fight for the world championship. That's okay. He'll decide, I don't want the championship right now. Oh, I get it. It's like they're just doing things because they want to do it. And it's a hot mess. I feel bad for Sami. You know why? Because even if we understand, And I truly think what I said earlier is spot on. We could understand the dynamic change that WWE's made creatively to book for the live fans in attendance and not as much for the people at home. We get to watch what's happening live in the building. Like that's what's really happening. We understand it, but that doesn't mean that our brain is suddenly going to be reprogrammed and forget about 10, 20, 30 years of being a wrestling fan and how important championships are. You know, you could say what you want, that titles don't mean anything, but I could bring up some big title victories over the years that were very, very important for us as fans. There's some beautiful moments, and beautiful moments have happened during times where people felt that titles meant shit. You think of Kofi, you think of Daniel Bryan, you think of Eddie Guerrero, you think of others. Even when Mick Foley won the championship, you know, nobody thought in their right mind that Mick Foley would ever become World Wrestling Federation champion. If TKO owned the company at that time, Mick Foley probably would have had the belt for 4 days. You know, so you don't ever want to watch wrestling and feel that no one has certain people have no shot whatsoever, because that's how a lot of movies are made. You can never watch an underdog in a movie again. You can never, you don't want to alienate. And that's why, as much as I like Vince Russo and always supported him for decades, you know, I've ranted he compared Sami Zayn to like David Arquette winning the title. That's just ridiculous, in my opinion. That is just ridiculous. You cannot give that perception that only certain moneymakers can be champion. Because the whole trick is, LA Knight will never get the fucking world championship if that's the case. You know, LA Knight, you saw what happened on Raw tonight. We'll get into it now. But thank you for that, Joshua. Let's talk a little bit about Raw for a minute. We open up with Sami Zayn and Cody Rhodes in the back. And there was something that I did not like about this segment. I don't know if any of you caught on as well. Sammy's in the back, shows up, he's got the title, shaking hands. You could tell those people out there probably didn't even know who Sami Zayn was with there shaking his hand. Cody Rhodes shows up. What Cody wanted to do was wish him luck. I'll see you out in the ring later on. And Sammy's like, I know what you think. You know, the Golden Boy is going to get his title back and you're going to beat me and this and that, blah, 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 blah. Well, that's not going to happen. And Cody's like, you know, if you're so certain, yeah, you are right. You know, Cody's like, you cunt, you bitch. Like, Sammy's being a little bit of a bitch. So before you can even blink an eye, here comes Gunther. The person who is told to believe and not show up. Gunther shows up and power bombs Cody Rhodes through a merch table in the back, which was a very interesting place to put a merch table because it was literally in the garage where people first drive in. Like, who was your audience? Like, the production trucks? Like, hey, you want to buy a shirt on the way out? So he gets put through a merchandise table, but if you look closely, Cody Rhodes starts crawling towards Sami Zayn's rental car. Cody Rhodes is now right by Sami Zayn's rental car with the door open. You could see where this is going. So Gunther looks at Sami Zayn, and he says to Sami Zayn, he says, Cody is not your problem anymore. Now I'm your problem. I'm coming for that title. And when I do, and it looks like Gunther slams the door or something onto Cody. And Cody, show like a little blood around the ear area. I hated that spot because over the years, I've seen spots where somebody has a door closed into them, whether it's their arm or head or anything else. And usually when that happens, It's if you ever watched the old Tom and Jerry cartoons where somebody steps on Tom's tail or even worse, chops his tail off and he holds it in and then he goes, ah! You scream at the top of your lungs. I remember when Dusty Rhodes had his arm crushed in a car door and screaming at the top of his lungs in pain. You go back and you watch it and Cody's just laying there like, wow, that was good weed, man. Like he didn't scream, didn't sell any pain, just looking in a daze like, wow, that was good shit, man. And Michael Cole's like, the hell did we just see? I just, to me, I didn't like that Cody didn't sell pain. He should have screamed, should have really sold that pain, and he just laid there. So we get that. Now, Seth Rollins hits the ring. And Seth Rollins was advertised to open the show. We're in the Allstate Arena, Illinois. Crowd is serenading Seth. He says, I love this arena. And then the fans are chanting CM Punk. He's like, I hate this arena. No, he didn't say that, but he's telling the fans, get it out of your system. Get it out of your system. He's like, look, CM Punk is not my business right now. My business is Roman Reigns, who isn't here tonight. And he says he's not here because either he's afraid or because the check wasn't big enough. And now he starts talking like corporate about Roman Reigns. That's the magic story. They do that with Cody. They do that with Roman. CM Punk has done it with various people. People have done it to CM Punk. You know, it's always like bringing the corporate side of things. They're all fucking corporate. So Seth Rollins says since day one, Roman Reigns was the chosen one. We came into this company as a trio, but Roman Reigns was always the chosen one. It didn't matter if he couldn't cut a promo. Didn't matter if he couldn't wrestle out of a wet paper bag. He was always the chosen one, and it never sat well with Seth Rollins. He brings up the kids at ringside. He's like, there's a kid there. He's 5, right? No, he's 9. Let me find a 5-year-old. Oh, there's a 5-year-old. And he says, see that kid? That was me. I was a 5-year-old kid once. Really? Really, Seth? Me too. We have a lot in common. I was a 5-year-old, and I always dreamed. I always dreamed of being a wrestler, becoming champion, main eventing WrestleMania, and to watch it repeatedly, over and over, handed to someone else, broke something inside of Seth Rollins. And Seth Rollins says a lot of his actions in the past were always to try to catch up or stay close to Roman Reigns. And yes, it is selfish, but he remembered something Roman Reigns said a while ago. And tonight on Raw was interesting. 2 times the word shit wasn't censored. Seth Rollins says he remembers something Roman Reigns said a few years ago. And Roman said that he worked 10 times less than Seth, but made 10 times more money. And Seth always thought that was bullshit. And he specifically said bullshit. He says for Seth, the reward was the work, the hustle, the grind. And Roman has to beat Seth at SummerSlam because Roman needs to justify after 15 years that he's not a fraud, which is, kind of lame for Seth to say. But then he says, I need to beat Roman to prove to myself that 5-year-old Seth Rollins, through all the hard work, sacrifice, and dreams, you could still achieve it. He forgot to say, I want my belt back. It's LA Knight's music hits. Yippee Skippy. That should be a shirt. Yippee Skippy. LA Knight cuts one of my favorite promos I've heard him cut. And everything was finished with a magical moment. LA Knight goes out there and he says that he's listening last week with Seth Rollins and them bloviating over each other. And he mimics the promos from last week. And he's like, hey, brother, You want to fight me? Yeah, brother, I'll fight you. And maybe, brother, after we could get matching haircuts, and brother this and brother that. It almost sounded like he was cutting a Hulk Hogan promo, but he was trying to mimic Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, and it was fucking hilarious. And the crowd was cheering. And even Seth kind of had a little bit of a smirk on his face. And LA Knight starts giving himself flowers, reminding everyone and Seth that 3 years ago, he was the hottest person there. And yes, you know, you guys, we remember why it didn't work out the way it did. Too bad WWE didn't have the World Heavyweight Championship earlier, but you really couldn't because you had to give that optic that Roman Reigns was the only champion. Remember, the undisputed WWE Universal Champion. So he keeps getting cut off. A couple of years ago, he's trying to become champion, and it was the bloodline that kept cutting him off. And then recently it was the Vision cutting him off. And now, once again, it's the bloodline cutting him off. And Seth does the same promo that CM Punk has done, that Cody Rhodes has done, that others have done over the years. He says to LA Knight, he's like, I don't like you, but I respect you. Because everything that Seth said about the grind and hustle and loyalty, that's what LA Knight is. And he thinks that one day LA Knight's day will come, but not now. Right now, Seth has to get the title back that he never lost. And when he does get it back, he'd be happy to give LA Knight the first shot, and he'll put him in the ground. So that's how he left. And LA Knight, it felt strong. It felt like, okay, you know, maybe we are finally going to start preparing LA Knight for a world championship push down the line. And then before you know it, like this, Jey Uso shows up and lays him out. And it's like, oh my God, we talked about that yesterday. Remember when we said you're going to get an LA Knight interruption, and then next week it'll be a Bloodline member, and a week later it'll be this, and LA Knight's going to be still, they did their fucking rinse and repeat. Even later on, LA Knight's in a parking lot, and Jackie Redmond runs up to him. Oh, actually, no, it was Jimmy Uso in the parking lot. And Jackie Redmond runs up to him, and she's like, why did you do that? And I was thinking to myself, like, Jackie, you don't know by now? So Jimmy Uso starts talking. He's like, I'm going to go show up on SmackDown Friday and take care of Solo. Now, you know LA Knight's going to be on SmackDown Friday. And then all of a sudden you see LA Knight in the background, like running up to get to Jimmy Uso, and Jacob Fatu cuts him off. Jacob Fatu leaves LA Knight laying. And as I watch that happen, I think to myself, wow, Jacob Fatu has done nothing since the Roman Reigns stuff. I mean, yes, he's been on TV still, but they have done next to nothing with Jacob Fatu. It's like a roadblock. I mean, the guy is healthy. The guy's not injured. And every week it's being wasted for what? Where is this going? And it was very interesting because we brought up something yesterday that I was very surprised the reaction it got, because it was just something I was thinking, and I never really looked at it this way. But if you go back and you look at Roman Reigns the last 4 years, you take away the bloodline, Roman has nothing. I mean, you really think about it. Like, Roman has been, I mean, sure, he had a little bit with Brock, but for the most part, during this entire run, if it wasn't for the bloodline faction and storyline surrounding him, Roman would have had next to nothing. Doesn't mean he wouldn't have still been the number one guy, but you realize how, and you realize why they're still doing the bloodline thing. You can't do anything with Roman on his own. Even when they teased Roman on his own, just when you thought Jay was deuce, remember when he quit? And you have Solo get involved. And then remember, it was Solo and Roman versus the Usos. And then the next thing you know, Solo departs, and then here's the Usos again. And it's like, Roman has got to be around, for the last 4 years, he's got to be around his family in order to succeed. You look at others. Cody's been able to do it alone. CM Punk's been able to do it alone. Sami Zayn, obviously he got the shit end of the stick for this 9-day run, but he's been able to do things alone. A lot of wrestlers are able to do it alone. Drew McIntyre was able to do it alone. Some wrestlers cannot do it alone. So that's what happened with LA Knight tonight. So then we get Division in the back. They're going to challenge the Street Profits for the tag titles. And in the back, you have Braun Breaker, Austin Theory, and Logan Paul. All of a sudden, Paul Heyman shows up. Paul Heyman is looking, and if you look at Braun Breaker, he looks like he's about to laugh. And Paul Heyman starts reading the riot act a little bit to Braun Breaker and Austin Theory. Didn't say anything towards Logan Paul. Because Logan Paul probably would have answered him back because the guy doesn't understand. But Paul Heyman says to Braun Breaker, you couldn't even take out Seth Rollins. And he looks at Austin Theory and says, you couldn't even take out Austin Theory. In fact, come back with something worthy for your wise man, or don't come back to me at all. So now you're thinking like, what the fuck is going to happen tonight? Because if they lose, what's left with Division? I mean, I do believe Braun Breaker ultimately will go solo. I don't think Bronson Reed needs a faction like he used to. Logan Paul will be out for a significant amount of time, but obviously they're not looking to split them up. Because, as we said earlier, you had the Street Profits lose the tag titles to Division. And how this all went down is, towards the end of the match, Logan Paul takes out a pair of breast knucks. And he throws it to Theory. Referee sees it. Referee takes it, and it's all a setup because Logan Paul has another set of brass knucks, and he's going to give it to Braun. And next thing you know, Braun Breaker gets knocked to the outside, and the brass knucks are laying on the mat inside the ring. The referee is trying to get Logan Paul off of the apron, and while this is all going on, Montez Ford decides he's going to jump over the top turnbuckle in the corner to the outside onto Braun Breaker. So Montez Ford and Braun Breaker are no longer in this match. So you now have Angelo Dawkins and Austin Theory in the ring. Logan Paul's on the apron, and the referee, if you watch just the referee and Logan Paul, it looks retarded because the referee is like trying to get him to stand down, get off the apron, and he's not getting off the apron. And then Angelo Dawkins picks up the knucks, and you would think in storyline, Logan Paul would tell the referee, turn around, or even do the gestures. Doesn't do that. And, which looked really bad, suspension of disbelief, but Angelo Dawkins now has the knucks. And he's looking at him, and he's getting ready to knock out Austin Theory. And here comes Maxxine Dupri with the nut shot of the year. She hit him so hard, those fucking brass knucks flew across the ring. So next thing you know, Austin Theory gets the upper hand, knocks out Angelo Dawkins, gets the win. They are the new tag team champions once again. They go outside the ring, and Maxxine Dupri and Austin Theory are playing tonsil hockey for a little bit. Logan Paul looks baffled. Braun Breaker looks like he feels a little awkward, but they're the new champions, and they're celebrating. And a few moments later, you see them in the back, and Paul Heyman is looking at them, and Paul Heyman says, at least someone got something accomplished tonight. And Austin Theory is happy. He's proud. He thinks that Paul Heyman is talking to them. And if you look at Braun Breaker, once again, he looks like he's about to laugh. Both times they were in the back with Paul Heyman, both times Braun Breaker looked like he was about to laugh. So when Austin Theory took the credit for it, Paul Heyman looks at him and says, I was talking about her. He was talking about her. So Paul Heyman was giving all the props to Maxxine Dupri. So now they get into a limo, or they get into an SUV and they drive off. And as they drive off, Otis and Tozawa, man, it's kind of like that movie. What was the name of the movie? Someone in the chat room could bail me out. What was the name of that movie with Woody Harrelson? I think it's Demi Moore. Remember the millionaire offered him $1 million if he sleeps with, I think, Demi Moore? And they go on a plane, I think it was, and they fly away. And I think Woody Harrelson is like standing there watching, like, no, don't go. Because he knew that his wife was about to screw somebody else. Anybody remember that movie? That's kind of them. That kind of reminded me of them. They just sit there and they're standing there and they look like lost puppies. Like their masters left them in the country, in the desert. Like two dogs and two cats. Like, why are you leaving? Where's our food? Where's our biscuits? Where's our water? Indecent proposal. Thank you, Ming. Indecent proposal. That's what it looked like. They looked like they were watching their wife go out into the sunset, about to sleep with a millionaire. So obviously next week, Maxxine Dupri will have the awkward moment in the back with Oz and Tozawa. And obviously that'll set up a tag match between Braun Breaker and Austin Theory versus Otis and Tozawa. And Maxxine Dupri will do the unthinkable, and she will probably low blow Tozawa or Otis. She will solidify the deal. She is no longer Alpha Academy. And then we see what happens with these two. I don't like the idea that the Street Profits lose the titles in 2 weeks. Because where do you go from here? Look at that tag team division on Raw. If we're being honest, what comes to mind? If I said to you right now, quick, in 3 seconds, who could the Street Profits feud with next? You literally think to yourself, Dominic and Janie McDonough? Tag team division is garbage on Raw right now. Garbage. Even the Creed brothers incognito. You look at others, Rusev and Ethan Page? Really, what does that do? If the Street Profits even beat them, what does that do? It doesn't do nothing. So now we find out that next week we're going to have a gauntlet match. And it's going to be an Intercontinental Championship #1 contenders gauntlet match. And the winner of this gauntlet match will go on to face Penta for the Intercontinental Championship at SummerSlam. So what you realize now is we're going to have 7 matches. No, 6 matches. 6 matches next week are going to be done to determine who faces Penta at SummerSlam. The participants are going to be Dragon Lee, Chad Gable, Joe Hendry, Javon Evans, Dominic Mysterio, Ethan Page, and Rusev. Gauntlet match. One of those individuals will face Penta for the Intercontinental Championship at SummerSlam. Later on, we had a little confrontation in the back. Chad Gable and Dragon Lee with Ethan Page and Rusev, because they're going to have a tag match later on. They all happen to be in the gauntlet match, and they're all happen to possibly be facing Penta at SummerSlam. So we end up getting that match, and I'm going a little out of place here because I can. We had Rusev and Ethan Page defeat Chad Gable and Dragon Lee. Rusev put the accolade in Dragon Lee. Fans were chanting Rusev Day. You could tell the fans want Rusev Day merch to return, but they want Rusev to be a little bit more of a baby face. him and Ethan Page could be heels and still celebrate Rusev Day. I mean, a lot of Rusev Day early on, Rusev was still a heel, but they won't go there for some reason. I don't know why they don't go there. Is greeted with a Soul Snatcher, and she lost. So, Sol Ruka retains the title. Io Sky will not be selling a leg injury going into SummerSlam, if you didn't realize after tonight. And you get another loss. And next week, just for the fuck of it, you're going to have Sol Ruka versus Roxanne Perez. That's what we have next week. Oh, excuse me, not Sol Ruka. Io Sky versus Roxanne Perez. The Roxanne Perez is supposed to soften up Io Sky a little bit for Liv Morgan at SummerSlam. So, interesting promo with Paul Heyman in the ring. Paul Heyman comes out there. He calls Obafemi King Schlong instead of King Kong. I was expecting to see people accuse Paul Heyman of being racist for that remark. You're comparing him to a gorilla? Yeah, people do that. He calls Obafemi King Schlong, and he says that Oba got kicked in the Femmies. I guess the balls of the Femmies. And he starts doing his usual Brock Lesnar shtick. Obafemi has inspired Brock Lesnar. Obafemi has motivated Brock Lesnar. Obafemi has made the biggest mistake of his life, accepting the challenge from Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar will destroy Obafemi inside Hell in a Cell. Hell of a Cell. That's a hell of a cell. Oba comes out. And this was interesting, if we're being honest. Paul Heyman still has the mic. And Paul Heyman says, you learned last week. You learned a little bit of a lesson. Last week, talk shit, not censored. Talk shit, get hit. But this week, Paul will talk facts. Paul Heyman says that Oba made a big mistake. Not at WrestleMania. Oba proved at WrestleMania that Brock Lesnar is beatable. Interesting. But in Italy, Brock Lesnar proved that Obafemi is beatable. So now at SummerSlam, it will determine who is still unbeatable. And he talks about the Hell in a Cell. He calls it the Brocktagon, which I liked. And he's talking about what Brock is going to do to Oba at SummerSlam. And it was interesting because, and I could be way off on this, but when Paul Heyman gave the mic, tossed the mic to Obafemi, the crowd was doing the Oba chant, but Oba, for a few seconds, it looked like he was lost. It looked like he wasn't sure how to come back with that. Because Paul was Paul. Paul was spot on with his promo. Oba starts saying something that, your mouth. And mouths are hungry. And he's like running down like some of what's happened. And he says that Brock is scared. But the way he was talking, it felt like he was trying to get through bullet points to finally get to something that he can kind of flow with on his own. And when he got to SummerSlam, because even when Paul Heyman mentioned that Brock Lesnar is the undisputed UFC champion, and he was talking about beating The Undertaker, I don't think Paul Heyman ever mentioned Randy Couture's name by name, but Obafemi did. And Oba, it felt like he was running down the same things that Paul Heyman had just said. But once Oba got to SummerSlam and brought up Minnesota, he said that he's going to beat Brock Lesnar in front of his friends, in front of his family. And he says that he's realized that you have to walk through hell to get to heaven, and he will see Brock Lesnar in hell. In the end, I think he recovered. But for the first half or 2/3 of Oba's promo, it felt like he was lost. It felt like he really didn't know how to come back. And it just sounded like he was reading not a cue card, but almost repeating what Paul Heyman said. But some of the lines just like, I've realized, Paul, you're a mouth, and mouths need to be fed. Okay. You're like, where are you getting at with this? It just felt like you're just making phrases, but it didn't feel like it was going anywhere. But in the end, I think he recovered. He recovered enough. Next week, Brock Lesnar will be on Raw. Next week, Roman Reigns will be on Raw. Next week, Bayley and Lara Vicaria will have a face-to-face. They'll probably have a SummerSlam match. We have the Gauntlet match, as we said, and we have Io taking on Roxanne Perez next week. That's what's been advertised. So now we get to the main event, and there's really not much that we can add to what we said in the beginning. Cody Rhodes, earlier in the night, I guess I could add this to it. Cody Rhodes, earlier in the night, is in the back with, I guess, a trainer. And the trainer's like, follow my finger. And Cody Rhodes does it perfectly. And the trainer looks at Adam Pearce, is like, I cannot clear him. And it was just dumb because he was just doing what you told him to do. But the trainer wants to get brain scans on Cody Rhodes. So they rush him to the hospital to get like an impromptu brain scan. And if everything comes back clear, then Cody Rhodes will be cleared to have a match, the title match tonight. So this is about an hour into the show. So, you're thinking, okay, CM Punk is supposed to return tonight. We all knew that. How are you going to incorporate CM Punk? Is he going to get the impromptu title shot, or is he going to interfere in Sami versus Cody, or could something else transpire that we're not even seeing? So later on, Sami Zayn is in the back with Jackie Redmond, and Jackie Redmond reveals to Sami Zayn that Cody cannot compete tonight. And this is about a half hour, 20 minutes before the main event. And Sami's surprised. Sami seems a little bit relieved also. But Sami, gives a little bit of props to Cody, and, he really wanted to face him tonight. And he brings up SmackDown. So Sami's like, all right, let's see what happens on SmackDown. And Adam Pearce shows up. So Adam Pearce says to Sami Zayn, he's like, look, I promised the fans in Chicago a title match tonight, and that's what I'm giving them, a title match. So the next half hour, Adam Pearce is trying to call people, which I thought in storyline was kind of goofy because Jey Uso was still around. No, Jey Uso wasn't on the show tonight. But you had Seth Rollins around, you had other people around. It's not like you had nobody in the building that couldn't have a match. But he's on the phone, Adam Pearce, trying to get in touch with someone. And Nick Aldis looks over at the phone. And again, this is a guy who's supposed to be on administrative leave. And Adam Pearce is like, don't look at my phone. And Nick Aldis impressed with, I guess, whoever he was trying to talk to. And Nick Aldis says, while you're leaving messages, I actually got in touch with someone. You're welcome, because I have someone that is going to main event, challenge Sami Zayn for the Undisputed WWE Championship tonight. So now, because we're in Illinois, the fans are chanting CM Punk. They were chanting CM Punk throughout the night. Now you're at literally 10:05 in the evening, and the main event is next. Sami Zayn comes to the ring, and we don't know who his opponent's going to be, and everybody and their mother's chanting CM Punk. You don't bring back CM Punk tonight, people would have been pissed the fuck off. And again, especially the way they are booking now for the fans that are paying top money to go to these events, you knew that they were not going to disappoint. I love the way they did it. The last time that I remember this being done with a pop like that, some of you will remember this. Al Snow was in ECW. And he, in ECW, started the head thing that everybody loved. And he fought Shane Douglas. And I don't know if it was Living Dangerously, his pay-per-view, but he fought Shane Douglas for the World Heavyweight Championship and lost. And I remember watching that pay-per-view on a Sunday night, and they put Shane Douglas on a bunch of wrestlers' shoulders, and they put Al Snow on a bunch of wrestlers' shoulders, and they shook hands after the match was over. And it really felt like Al Snow was exiting ECW. So the next night on Raw, there's a gate in the back, and it's an infamous clip. If you've never seen it, go on YouTube. I'm sure there's 1,000 people have posted it. There's a gate in the back, and somebody's banging on the gate. And as the gate opens up, it's Al Snow, and got a huge pop from the fans. And that's how Al Snow came back to the WWF. Tonight, it had the same aura about it, but this obviously felt bigger. You see the gate for the Allstate Arena, it's painted on the gate. And as the gate lifts up, you see it's CM Punk. And fans are going nuts. And CM Punk comes out to the ring. You know, we know that CM Punk added, I would say, about 10 pounds of muscle since WrestleMania. He's been working out. We've seen pictures. I mean, looked very, very intense tonight. And the crowd was going nuts. And, you know, Sami Zayn was not happy. The storyline is he wasn't prepared to face CM Punk tonight. And they had a great match. Interrupted with commercials, which kind of sucked. But they had a spectacular match. You had the wrestlers hitting each other's moves on each other. Sami Zayn hit the go to sleep twice. CM Punk hit an exploder. You know, they really worked great together. And as far as I can remember, I think Sami Zayn and CM Punk only had one match before, because I do remember last year, one time I remember we said this is the first time that they ever faced. I don't think they faced each other one-on-one more than once last year. It might have even been a qualifying match for Elimination Chamber, because I do remember they were both trying to get into the chamber, and that was the first time they ever faced each other one-on-one. But they put on an awesome match, and it was back and forth. Nobody interfered. Gunther was, escorted out of the building earlier on, but, towards the end, you had these guys hitting each other's moves on each other, and then when CM Punk hit the exploder and haluva kick on Sami Zayn, that's when he capitalized and hit the go to sleep, got the win. There was one point where CM Punk locked the Anaconda Vice on Sami Zayn, and at that point, we thought there was a good chance he could tap. But this was very well done. And again, putting aside the fact that Sami Zayn only had a 9-day run, this was WWE's way to get CM Punk on SmackDown as the World Heavyweight Champion, or the Undisputed WWE Champion, without defeating Gunther or Cody Rhodes. I did see today AJ Styles, Booker T, and a few others. They were hoping that Sami Zayn was not going to be a transitional champion. And I hope that as well, because, this is a bad example. People understand why I say it like this. Remember when Ethan Page won the NXT World Championship? Remember how he won? He just fell on someone, didn't even realize he won. All right, that was unexpected. And Ethan Page, you probably would not have thought would become world champion at the time for NXT. But they actually gave him some time with the belt. He had a match on AAA. He had some other matches as well. And I thought he did a decent job with it. His win was unexpected, but they let him work enough to show that he can represent as world champion. I just feel with Sami Zayn, especially how people wanted him to win at Elimination Chamber a couple of years ago. When he fought Roman, remember when Sammy's family was at ringside and, during a little of that, and, people truly wanted Sami to dethrone Roman. It wasn't going to happen, but at that point, people thought, he's going to get his moment. Then don't forget, when Jey Uso won the world championship last year, we thought Sami was turning the Raw after. Do you remember that night? Jey was celebrating in the ring, and Sami had this weird look on his face that he was about to attack Jey. And that night, we were all convinced, holy shit, he's going to turn on Jey, and it didn't happen. And then the following week, we thought it was going to happen. I think Jimmy Uso's music hit or something and just spoiled the moment. And they never did it. And then, there was a segment in the back where Cross was taunting Sami, you'll never be world champion. You'll never be world champion. And Sami was doing these passionate promos. I have to become champion. I need to become champion. I have to become champion. And the next thing you know, like the next 6 to 9 months, Sami just had caca. And they weren't doing anything. And we were like, wow, we thought there was going to be a road paved for, like they had plans for Sami to become champion. And it didn't happen. And then after 2+ years, 3 years, whatever it is, now it finally happens. And they made it feel even bigger and more special because it happened in Saudi Arabia. And we even pondered, could Sami pull off kind of like what Bret Hart did in 1997? Pro-Canada, pro-Saudi Arabia, to hell with the United States fans. 3 years ago, you guys cried and wanted me to become champion. Now, you hate me. I mean, it was easy to do this. And whoever would have defeated Sami Zayn could have become a little bit more of a hero. And literally you realize now that the only reason why Sami Zayn won was to give a magical moment for Saudi Arabia. Yes, Sami in the record books will now always be considered a world heavyweight champion. No question, undisputed WWE champion, and the champion that has a long lineage behind it. But then you also realize that the belt was put on him solely as a placekeeper for CM Punk, because the plan was always for CM Punk to return in Illinois in front of his home crowd, and they didn't want the momentum to end at WrestleMania. But Roman Reigns agreed to return for a significant amount of time. So how do we keep CM Punk world champion if we want Roman Reigns to be world champion? And the idea was take some time off. You had a big 2025, one of the MVPs for sure, arguably the best match at WrestleMania. Take a few months off, relax with your wife, recoup, re-energize. CM Punk is not young anymore. Give himself a fresh step, work out a little bit, get yourself in even better shape. And when you're ready to come back, we'll figure out a way to bring you back on TV, and maybe we can even put the championship on you. And that's where we're at. So I don't have any issue with CM Punk being world champion on SmackDown. It's a very creative way to do it, but you did it at someone's expense. You had a creative way to get Maxxine Dupri in the Vision, but you did it at the Street Profits' expense. You're treating them no better than you did 2-3 years ago. And you're seeing now that WWE is booking for big moments in arenas that a month later are deflated because of twists and turns and bullshit decisions. With all due respect, the Old Bafemi King of the Ring winning in Saudi Arabia is completely deflated because he's not facing the world heavyweight champion at SummerSlam. You see some people in the tournament that were in the tournament that ended up losing but still get a championship shot after all. You know, it's sometimes you say to yourself, why did Seth Rollins even be in this tournament? Why not give that spot to someone else? You know, you're seeing that they're doing moments so people in the arena at that particular moment go home and feel like, wow, you know, had an amazing night tonight. And then a couple of weeks from now, you know, not every moment is deflated, but you see how things are being booked and you're playing a lot of hot potato in the process. Playing a lot of hot potato. You either see someone doing very little or you see a lot of hot potatoing. Some belts that are secondary and tertiary, they don't really put a lot of focus on. But others, the ones that really matter, you look at Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is a great example. You take away Jacob Fatu, what has he done since he become the world champion? He walks around with the Usos. That's all he does is he walks around. Outside of Jacob Fatu, we're 3 months since he won that title. And in 3 months, you take away Jacob Fatu, there's nothing else. Zero. Whether you liked Cody as champion or you didn't like him as champion, you realize from WrestleMania, Cody had various people that they were commingling him with. Roman, again, you go back and he's throwing empty threats to Royce Keys and LA Knight. You know that they're not getting any shot at Roman. You know, so you see that what they're doing. And as we said at the beginning of the show, they're kind of like doing this transition. You know, it's more about pleasing the live fans in attendance that are paying the premium money. And for all of us at home, we could bitch all we want. We could complain all we want. We could have frustration. But at the end of the day, our voices don't really matter anywhere near it used to be because of the streaming deals. You know, remember a couple of years ago, WWE did not have the Netflix. WWE did not have ESPN. You know, WWE had Peacock to an extent, but they still had Fox. You know, and everything. Why did Fox non-renew? They felt that they were not getting enough in return. As a result, what happens? SmackDown goes to the USA Network and Raw goes to Netflix. And then obviously the relation with Netflix expanded. And now you have that insanely large overseas presence. So even if Netflix were to drop Raw after 5 years, they probably will still keep a relationship with WWE, at minimum for international premium live events. I personally think ESPN, once ESPN is done with this deal with WWE, I think ESPN can't wait to get away from WWE. Because the thing is with ESPN, it's pretty much premium live events and that's it. With Netflix, you got Unreal. With Netflix, you have premium live events overseas. With Netflix, you have specials. With Netflix, you have wrestlers on other shows that are on Netflix. WWE has a huge relationship with Netflix in a lot of different ways. And I personally think when everything is said and done, Netflix could be the sole home for WWE programming. That could be the future. I mean, it's not happening anytime soon, but that could be the future. But again, when you don't have regular cable ratings anymore and you don't have regular pay-per-view buys anymore and you don't have advertisers like you did before, remember the advertisers on Netflix, that's for Netflix. That's Netflix's revenue. And as we explained last Wednesday, why Braun Breaker's head was blurred out instead of the black and white video treatment. You know, I strongly recommend all of you out there to check out this past Wednesday's show, because there's a lot of people in the wrestling news world out there that gave you 100% misinformation. WWE was not the one responsible for Braun Breaker's head being blurred out. That was a Netflix call. And it was an international call, it was an advertising call, and there was an algorithm involved with it as well. The idea that people are telling you that WWE did that is 100% lie. And trust me, I would crap on WWE as much as the next person. But, you understand now what WWE's their primary, goals are. You look at these quarterly revenue numbers that come out. You look at that quarterly revenue, and what is it? It's merchandise, it's ticket sales, it's on location, it's autograph signings, it's auctions, it's fanatics, it's all of that. None of it is us watching from home. None of it. In that, for the most part, that quarter that came out earlier this year, where WWE had insane numbers, $400 million, whatever it was. Look at the breakdown and you realize this is why we're getting some of what we're getting. Because they're getting enough people that are going to overpay for WWE right now. And we have to, instead of taking home a chair, you're taking home a big memory. You have people in Italy taking home huge memories. You have people in Saudi Arabia taking home big memories. That's what they're doing more times than not. So, all right. I'm going to jet. We're almost at 2.5 hours. I appreciate everybody who hung around tonight. Listen, overall, not a bad Raw. I still feel that Sami Zayn got the shit end of the stick on this one. We'll see where this leaves with Sami Zayn. But I tell you, don't feel too sorry for Sami Zayn. Because Sami Zayn is getting paid very, very well. He is still in a high-profile position there. And Sami Zayn has been, I don't know what we could call it. When we used to say WWE was going to domesticate The Undertaker, that's something Kevin and I were saying 15 years ago. WWE starting to domesticate The Undertaker. People had no idea what we meant by that. And little by little, he was going to be less Undertaker, more Mark Calloway. They're turning everybody corporate. And, not everybody is a corporate guy, but there's a lot of people there that you never in a million years would ever think would turn corporate, but they have. And you saw that clip with Sami Zayn earlier. I don't even know why I had that saved in my program. I just happened to go through my photos earlier and I saw a Sami video and I was like, what's this? And I was like, holy shit. Played that a few months ago and it shocked a lot of people for Sami to have that take to brush off WWE as far as politics and everything goes. But even Sami, to an extent, doesn't make him any less of a good person. He's a very, very dedicated person and he helps with his charitable causes. And, but at the end of the day, Sami knows his employer. Most of the WWE roster knows their employer. Anybody that signs with the WWE knows their employer. So if someone works there a year and then gets canned, or someone doesn't get that great of an opportunity and you feel like WWE, they never gave that person a fair shake, or you feel that it's wrong that they cut this person's pay, these people know damn well who they're working for. They know damn well. And at the end of the day, whether it's New Day or Sheamus or anyone else that decided to take a pay cut, whether it's Rey Mysterio, LA Knight, or someone else, all right, they know who they work for. This is not a shock to them. It becomes a shock when they don't think it could happen to them. But anybody that is older, that is not getting the opportunities that people expected them to get, those are the ones that are going to be approached with a pay cut. It's not rocket science, and that's not breaking news from Dave Meltzer. You just look at someone who's approaching 50, that has been off TV more time than they've been on TV, that's been dealing with various injuries and almost had to retire for spinal stenosis, and they're approaching the end of their contract, and then you find out from Fightful that Sheamus turned down a restructuring, doesn't take a genius. Somebody brain dead in a hospital could be on their deathbed, wake up and say, Sheamus, he declined a restructure and WWE doesn't want to pay him because they're not using him like he used to. Like, no shit, Sherlock. Doesn't take a genius to figure that out. But that's what's going on. And ultimately it could happen to Rusev. And ultimately it could happen to this person. And I think it'll happen to Candice LeRae. And I think it'll happen to Johnny Gargano. And I think it'll happen to this person. At some point, everybody gets old. And at some point, you kind of, jump the shark. It's going to happen to R-Truth again. That's the way it is. It's just that we have a personal connection to a lot of these wrestlers, and we don't want to see them go. The term lifer, you got to stop using that, especially under TKO, because even in baseball, it's very rare that someone's a lifer. Unless they're signed to a guaranteed contract, no buyouts, no nothing, 10-year contract, yeah, that person may be a lifer. But the way WWE contracts are structured, you should not look at anybody as a lifer anymore, because at some point, whether it's because of injuries or because of fuck up or because their body just deteriorated too much, WWE and TKO will turn around and say, listen, we'd love to keep you around. We cannot pay you $1 million a year. We're not going to use you like that. So if you want to stay around, this is what we'll offer you. If you don't want it, go. It's business. It's nothing personal. And I think for some of the people that are let go, I don't expect Sheamus to trash WWE. I don't expect the New Day to trash WWE. Maybe them a little bit. But for the most part, they know who they're working for. Do not feel like anybody's gotten fucked, because this is who they work for. And this is what it is. No one sits in catering anymore, as Nick Khan has said repeatedly for many years. Thank you, Markel. And thank you, everyone. Much love. I will be back Wednesday with Wednesday Night Dynamite. Just keep following the website, wrestling-news.com or dontony.com. It brings you to the same destination. Again, thank you, Markel, for your kind words and your generosity, my friend. Appreciate it. So make sure you check out Wednesday Night Dynamite. And then we get back in the same routine. I'll be live on Patreon Thursday. I'm still blown away. Kyle, shout out to him, mentioned to me last week, this August we'll be on Patreon for 10 years. It's unbelievable. We have 10 years of Patreon shows that are there. 10 years of content. That's wild. Patreon, 10 years have gone by already. So check it out. Patreon.com/Don Tony. You'll be surprised how much you'll find there. So everyone, I'm going to rest my voice. It's 1:15 in the morning over here. So let me know what you thought of Raw. And let me know how you feel about Sami. How do you feel with the way this was handled? You don't have to shit on CM Punk if you're upset at the way they handled Sami. I don't think it's fair to take it out on CM Punk, because I don't think CM Punk came back to screw Sami Zayn over. He is just obviously, caught in the middle of this. But who knows? We may end up seeing part of this on WWE Unreal Season 4.
We just simply don't touch politics, as a company.
Yeah, no. I didn't want to share that again, so I did want to share this. Be well, everybody. Much love.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the host. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's alright, he's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. It doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody, while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.